Hello everyone. So we were just looking at the transits, and the Mars Neptune conjunction is about 2 hours away from now. We noticed that it's an exact semi-sextile 30 degrees from Saturn. So Saturn's 24 degrees 59 minutes Aquarius, and the Mars Neptune is 24 degrees 59 minutes Pisces. And we're just feeling a prayerful energy in the air. So we wanted to just spontaneously share this video and just share some prayers and reflections in what's arising for us right now. You want to share?
Yeah. The thought that comes to mind is that this transit is reflective of a crisis of consciousness. And what I mean by that is that there's a way in which we've been living, and when we're ready for something to shift in our life, often there's a crisis that arises or something. And we just went through a powerful eclipse window. But it's also there's a collective energy of unrest. And in all the ways that we're resisting the divine, we're resisting what wants to move through our lives because we've built particular structures of routines and habits and things that have just felt safe and comfortable, and even just ways of thinking about our life, that we can move through the same things day in and day out, and we can be subtly receiving guidance that something needs to change but not be making a change until there's a shift in mindset. And when that happens, it can feel like everything is breaking down. When that crisis occurs, whether it's just simply on a mental or emotional level, or there are things in our physical reality that are also breaking down or not working, it can become extremely destabilizing. And yet, in the midst of that upheaval, there is an opportunity. And the lesson for today in the Course in Miracles is, by grace I give, by grace I will receive. And it really points to that there is an underlying grace that is moving all things, that there's an underlying love that is moving all things. And in those moments when we are most disturbed by our consciousness, by the way things feel uncontrollable in a sense, by the way life feels outside of our knowing because there's so much uncertainty, grace has an opportunity to come in and actually guide us beyond our own understanding. And that's what the crisis of consciousness is. We're moving from a place where we're moving beyond our own understanding to a new level of understanding. And that's what arises for me.
Thank you for that. And we had this tendency to put our life in a box, whether we think we're doing it or not. And it's like what's happening right now. It's not even a thought. It's like an energetic sense of what's happening, and we demonstrate what we believe is happening by just like how we are in reaction, how we're in our stance, relative to everything, our defense, our reactivity, the way that we are with what is, points to what we think is. And also the past, our sense of where we're coming from and where we're going, the boxes, the constructs that we have. Saturn always points us to our relationship to form, to conditioning. And it's transits like these that can very much be pointing to a breakdown of, like you were saying, everything we think we know, the constructs that we've been holding on to. And sometimes these constructs are dysfunctional. They're not like helpful, but they're known, and it's what we've decided is true. It's the world that we've put ourselves into. And it's a moment like this where it's a crisis because the bricks that we've laid to build a foundation that we've put ourselves in can just crumble. And that can feel so destabilizing and so disorienting. And I think it has this amazing opportunity to bring us back to where we are. Bringing us back to where we are which is where we are. And there's curiosity there. Not where we think we are. Right? Not what we think should be, because obviously that's not where we are. Not what we thought happened, because that's just a thought. Not what we think will happen, because of course that's not now either. And our positioning relative to this moment is also just a positioning relative to this moment. There's like something so essential, so true, that is just what's now.
Well, there's a feeling of like in those moments where things are breaking down, this is often the place where we're able to meet our lives with a different perspective, where we're able to see or even experience levels of forgiveness that weren't accessible before. And the whole Mars Neptune element to me is that uniting of our will with that which wants us to be part of the whole, that wants us to actually know ourselves as one with everything. But we think there's something we have to do in order to get there, in order to be that, in order to have that. We think that somehow the ways that we've set up our lives are what is, creating the safety that we seek. And all of this has been happening relative to Saturn squaring the nodes. And I know I've talked a lot about this in my own videos, but like the safety that we seek isn't in the past, and it isn't in the future, and it isn't in conditions. And yet, when we are in the midst of these crises, that's the moments where we can most access the feeling that something greater than us is carrying all of us. And there is a liberation that can come from that allows us to step into a different way of being with our lives. And many times this results in miracles, really shifting people's lives in whole directions. And then you get freed up from a pattern where you've been stuck for ages. And all of a sudden, because you're not looking at the world right side up, but upside down, you're able to see things correctly.
That's some of my sextile energy too. To be specific, with Saturn relative to Neptune, it's a balsamic phase semi-sextile. It's like moving towards a conjunction, which will probably happen at the very end of Pisces, I imagine, right? In a couple years. So that the very nature of that is, I don't know where to go with this. I mean, just think about mutable water and then like fixed air. Fixed air is like, it's so visionary. It's so like brilliant. It's really smart. And then mutable water, Pisces, is just letting go and allowing and trusting and forming a relationship to something much greater. This speaks to our higher intelligence, the higher mind, the greater intelligence that's carrying all of this. And we have to appreciate we don't have a full grasp of the brilliance of the algorithm to see how all the intricate karmic pieces of our life are connected to a path of return. Like just trusting the innate intelligence that's here now without needing to understand. And a little bit of willingness, that's I think what I'm looking for here. Like a little bit of willingness says, okay, I don't know, but I'm willing to acknowledge that that's okay, and that there's learning here. And that this learning is not something I can make up. I'm not making up the curriculum. That's helpful, right? Saturn, being a good disciple means listening to what the teacher's wanting to teach you. You go to school, you didn't make the curriculum. Your job is to study it, to practice it, to apply it well. So that little willingness to acknowledge that there's a way of being now. There's a truth to reality that is not what I've known. And, if the constructs that we're building create more clutter, carry an edge of blame, shame, judgment, it might feel a little good. It's sort of popular for that to feel good. But then we have to really ask ourselves, like, do I want to live here? Do I want to keep on adding bricks to that? we have to be really mindful. And I think we learn to be really, really thoughtful about where we're directing our attention, and to be honest with, is this what we really want? And to remember there's a learning that if we learn it, it equates with a sense of peace and forgiveness and acceptance, and a sense of unity and togetherness that is restful. It leads to rest. It leads to replenishment. There's a quality of healing that comes with it for all of us. So it's helpful coming back to that. There's a teaching in A Course in Miracles that I think I probably quoted this before, that understanding can come only with peace. And we often are just trying to grasp at understanding because we want a solid structure. We want to contextualize the who's and the what's and the where's and the when's of our life and feel secure in that. But to put peace first, and to actually be willing to learn a new way of looking, a new way of thinking. So I think with this time, we're seeing this new phase open up in mind. Saturn is about to go retrograde. So it's going to go in and out of this semi-sextile phase for a while now, throughout the rest of this year. So we're kind of, if you can think of it in this way, Saturn and Neptune are on the cusp of a semi-sextile for several months. So it's a good time to study the semi-sextile. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Wolf Green calls the semi-sextile a psychological irritant. Just think about it again. It's like, I often think of the semi-sextile and also the inconjuncts as how we experience peripheral vision. It's peripheral. If you look at it, almost like it goes away. If you look straight, you can have knowledge and vision here if you just allow it to be in your periphery, but you can't grab it. So you have to just sort of relax your attention and just see what is when we're not trying to control it on our own. And it does invite a quality of adjustment and openness. In this case, it's really a letting go to a greater plan, a greater vision. And also, this is not a abstract thing. Our teacher, David Hoffmeister, who teaches A Course in Miracles, always says that he wants it to be practical. Whenever he prays, I just love this teaching. He wants all of the teachings to be practical. He wants his guidance to be practical. If we're receiving a teaching from our instructor and it's inaccessible, it's alienating, it's like impossible, how does that do us any good? Like, where's the growth in that? It has to be practical. To be practical means it can be practiced, it can be applied. And so that's the point. And thus we get to really be in reflection, inquisitive about the practice of knowledge, the practice of our learning in our life, which is like practicing peace, practicing a way of being. And it also wants to guide us. It wants us to fulfill a role, a function in this life. That's a part of the greater plan. So Saturn is our role, it's our function. Neptune is our oneness with all that is. Mars is the leading edge of our evolutionary journey. This is one of the strong, re-inspiring realignments to spiritualize and give meaning to our purpose, and to open up to not a belittled thought about ourselves, not an unnecessarily inflated thought about ourselves either. Every accurate thought about ourselves and our purpose will be beautiful, will be magnanimous, not in some sort of egoic sense, but in a sense of everything divine is magnanimous, is beautiful, is holy, is forgiving and special, in the sense that it's like a blessing. It's like, what an honor to walk this life and to live this way.
And just to give a practical example, when sometimes we have opportunities in our life where we know something's going to change, where we know like a greater change is coming, but there isn't a way yet to access what life is going to look like or feel like or be like relative to that change. And I think about this a lot as we're preparing to give birth to another baby, and as I'm like expanding and feeling much more cosmic connection to the spirit, the soul of the baby, but I'm completely with the reality that I have no control over when they come, when, and how it is to be. Like, there is the element of divine will is there, and we can be struggling against it. Actually, we can do things to try and induce labor or to make something happen. And actually, that only results in more suffering, more pain, and generally more trauma relative to the experience. But what I've been doing in my own life is just like listening for what is mine to do. And this, I feel, is the Saturn piece of discipline, where actually when we know, well, I need to study this or that, I can begin listening to these. I can listen to people talk about labor, I can watch videos, I can take walks, I can continue to nourish my body. There are all these levels. When we're talking about all of this squaring the Taurus and Scorpio axis, it really is about that core feeling of nourishment and safety that I was talking about earlier. But it's relative to like what the divine is also guiding us through a huge transformative process. And we can't know when that is going to happen or how it's going to happen. It can be disturbing to a mind that wants to control outcomes, has expectations, feels like uncertainty or threat to its existence, to its reality, like the ego's threat to reality. The greater at peace we are, the more the ego's reality is threatened. And yet I feel how I can know intuitively that birth is easier if I'm relaxed. And even though there's discomfort, even though there's uncertainty, even though there isn't a plan that I even feel like I can have. This is my third birth, and so I feel like I don't have a plan that I can have. I know what plans do to births. Yeah. But I can have a way of being with myself and with spirit and with the whole process that allows for my mind to be changed about what's possible. And to hold the prayer. The prayer is for healing. That has been the prayer since the beginning. To continue to hold that as the way forward, even when I don't know what the next step is or what the future, how that healing is going to play out. We can often think that we know how healing should go. And it's like, when that person does this, then I'll, then that'll be healed. And it's like, no. That's not how it goes. Or when this condition is right, then I'll feel safe. Then I'll feel, and that's never how it goes. I was reading something earlier today, which was just basically talking about how if you really want those things, anything in your life, you have to cultivate the feeling of that thing within yourself as if it's already there. You can't seek from something else or someone else or somewhere else the feeling, because it will just escape you. And that's kind of the elusiveness of the Neptunian dream, is we can be often seeking things through substance, through that don't bring the satisfaction.
Any seemingly rational, reasonable thing to look for.
Yeah. And so there's a process of surrendering that while simultaneously doing our work and staying in the question of like, what is emerging for me? What is mine to do? What is the medicine that's here with this relationship, this person, this situation? Because it's all part of a greater healing, one that we can't even see the unfolding of in its entirety. And there's some freedom in that, because we don't actually have to know how it goes in order for it to go that way.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.